Okay, so for my first step, what I did is I used the embroidery hoop and I took some white cardstock and then traced a circle so that I could figure out the exact measurements for this particular hoop. When I'm doing a project like this, I did so many hoops that I would tighten the top so that there might be some slight variation in the circumference of the hoop. So for each one I did this. I basically took the hoop, put it around some white cardstock, and then traced around it and cut it out. And then I also cut out the pattern paper I use this as my template, and then I cut out the pattern paper. The other tip that I can give you is what I did is when I would cut it out, I put an arrow going up on the white cardstock and then also the pattern cardstock where they kind of meet together, because the circle is not obviously a perfect circle, so I wanted to match it up the best I could so that when I adhered the two pieces together, I knew I kind of had some direction on where to put the two pieces together. So the next step is actually Mod Podge. So I'm going to show you what I did there, and then we'll keep going. Okay, so for this step I'm going to be using the Mod Podge in matte, and basically what I did is I just put a thin layer over the white daisy cardstock, and then I'm going to adhere the pattern paper on top. So I just put on like a generous amount and then start spreading it out. You want to make sure that you're going to get the edges of the paper so that it's adhered down nicely, and then you just keep spreading it out like a thin layer. So usually I would go in twice with like 2 dollops like that, and then I would just be able to spread it out over the rest of the paper. And I'm just trying to get those edges in. It's going to start to curl, but that's okay. When you put the other paper down, it'll smooth out, and then I'll show you what you can do to kind of get it so that it stays flat. Okay, so I'm going to turn this around so the arrow is here on my white paper, and then I just got to find the arrow on this one, which is right here. And then I'm just going to put it down. What you want to do is just put it down on the edge and start. Okay, so what you want to do is make sure that you're smoothing this down with your hands and making sure you're getting those edges in. And the next thing you want to do is actually Mod Podge the top. But if you do this before the paper, these two papers have adhered together and dried completely, you're going to get bubbles under the pattern paper. So you either can let this air dry on its own, or you can use your heat tool to kind of speed up the process. So one thing about the heat tool is when you're drying it like this, you can turn it over and it'll help so that it stays flat. So basically, as you see the paper starting to curl up, like the edges are coming up, you just keep turning it over and it'll dry flat. So I see that there's a little bit of glue that's not really gluing down there properly, so I'm just going to add some more. You really got to get these edges down, so you don't want to have this happen. So, and I always have like a rag or something handy to get the adhesive off. Sometimes I even use the cloth to sort of smooth it down. So you just want to keep turning it over And then when you see it curling up, I just keep flipping it over, and then you just can start drying the other side. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat. Don't worry about that, because when you glue it down to the embroidery hoop, you're gonna be able to get it flat again doing that. So, but I do try and get it as flat as I can, so it's not too curled. And I might even though I dry this, I'm actually going to let it dry for a while on its own, because I really want to make sure it's dry. It makes such a difference for it to be completely dry before you put the Mod Podge on top of the pattern paper. The reason I'm doing this is because if you have any kind of home decor and you're using paper products, they can fade over time, especially if you have the item in your house like near a window, like where the sun can kind of shine in on it. It will over time fade the paper. So I just like to put Mod Podge on it just as a sealant, and then I also am going to be doing some texture paste, so I want to have it ready to receive the texture paste. So it's just more stable for the texture paste to adhere to and for it to not start curling the paper. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I do the texture paste. So I'm just using the Ranger texture paste. And so I'm going to zoom in. Hopefully you'll be able to see this a bit better. Yeah, so this is going to be hard to see with this background, but here's my overlay. And hopefully you'll be able to see it. So remember from earlier, I sort of designed my layout, and I knew that I wanted to have texture paste kind of up in this corner, up in the right, and then down over here, because I'm going to be trying to embellish quite a bit of this space here, so I don't need the texture paste as well. So basically you're just going to get some of the texture paste on your knife. This is actually getting a little bit hard, so hopefully it's going to work. And then you want to just hold down your mask, and then you want to just scrape it to the side so that it's not getting underneath the mask. You're just kind of scraping it on top. And I like to leave a little bit of texture, like I like it to be high, raised, my texture paste. So I'm doing it quite thick in some spots. Like I'm not worried about smoothing it right down, because I actually want it to be thick, so that when I peel off the mask, you can see it there. It's like, hopefully you can, there you go. So you can see that it's kind of raised up. So then I'm just going to move the mask down. I know I wanted some a little bit up here, so I'm going to take some more and just put it in this corner here. You don't have to be, honestly, like too precise. It's all going to work out. You just want it to be a little bit of, like, there's just going to be a little bit of texture on the paper, so that it adds some dimension to your project. Okay, and then I also want to add some down in this corner, because I know that I've got that one card stock sticker that I'm going to be putting to cover up that little bracket. So I'm just going to be putting some of this on, so it's going to peek out from there. My texture paste is actually a little bit dry. It's probably too dry. I haven't used it for a while, so yeah, but it's still okay. So there we go. Okay, so I think that's good. I just want it in those areas because I think I'm going to be covering up a lot of this corner with flowers and stuff. So basically you want to let this dry. You can use your Tim Holtz heat tool to dry. Okay, and I also wanted to quickly mention that in order to reuse this, you're best off, like you can scrape off. I got quite a bit of product on here still, so I'm going to scrape some off, but then I'm actually going to go wash this because then you can use it again on another project. And as long as it holds up its shape, you can keep reusing it over and over again. Okay everyone, so I am ready to show you my final 2 projects that I made. So in this, with this paper pack and some of the coordinating embellishments, I had enough to do 2 different, like basically divide the cardstock stickers and some of the chipboard pieces into 2. So I divided them. They actually had a recommended guide. They had like a recommended guide on which ones they told you, like which ones they told you to put together. So they actually have 4 different ones, but I just merged 2 together and 2 together to make the 2 different layouts. So the people that are coming to my retreat will get one of the 2 layouts that they get to do. So this is the first one. And so what I did is I stuck down the embroidery hoop onto the paper, and then I did leave some of the spots here like flat, so I didn't actually put any of the texture paste there, and I wanted to do that strategically so I could actually put the title down. And then what I did for all of the chipboard pieces and these layers is I just used cardboard. I cut pieces of cardboard and put it underneath it and then popped it up that way. You can use obviously pop-up tape or foam tape, but you would burn through quite a bit, and I just have so much, well, we all have cardboard kind of laying around, so I just cut some up and then did it that way. So I just did like the little kind of cluster down here, and I wanted to cover up the bracket, so I just strategically placed this over to the right so that it would cover that up. And then what I'm going to do is get those kind of frame stands that you can just stand this up in, and then people can put it in their home for their home decor. So that's the first one. And then I actually just finished this one just now. So these are the rest of the embellishments that come with this coordinated paper pack. And this is the layout that I did for this one. So I just popped up some of the butterflies here. Again, there's cardboard underneath that to pop that up. I put this down flat right on the paper. And then just, we have the gems, the coordinating kind of gems that go with this line, so I just popped those up everywhere. And again, I wanted to cover the bracket, so I put the word today kind of so it's covering the bracket down there. And then I have just that flower, and then I wanted to put a cluster again down here just to balance out the layout. So I hope that you learned something today, and I hope that you try one of these. They're super fun to make. And thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy crafting. Bye-bye. Baby, please come.